What if I told you that the wobbly, unsteady feeling you get when you step off a curb, cross a gravel driveway, or turn around quickly in the kitchen has almost nothing to do with your knees, your hips, or even your inner ear? It's not weak thighs. It's not, quote, just getting older. It's not because you need a cane before you're ready for one. The real cause is hiding in a part of your body most people haven't thought about since they stopped going barefoot as kids: the small muscles wrapped around your toes. I'm a physical therapist, and fall prevention in older adults is a huge part of my week, so let me give you the number that should get your attention. According to the CDC, 1 in 4 adults over 65, more than 14 million people, falls at least once a year in the United States. Most of those falls don't start with a trip or a slip you could have seen coming. They start with a foot that quietly stopped doing its job months, sometimes years earlier. Let me tell you about a man I'll call Frank. Frank is 74, retired, plays cards twice a week, and by every measure his doctor checked, leg strength, hip flexibility, even his eyesight, he was fine. But Frank kept catching himself. Stepping off his back porch onto the grass, his ankle would wobble and he'd grab for the railing. Walking the uneven brick path at his daughter's house, he found himself staring down at his feet the entire way, afraid to look up and enjoy the visit. His doctor ran the standard checks, shrugged, and told him to just be more careful and watch where you're stepping. Frank left that appointment more confused than when he walked in. Nothing was technically wrong with him. So why did the ground suddenly feel less trustworthy than it used to? Before I answer that, if you're new here, hit subscribe and tap the bell so you don't miss the videos that could genuinely keep you steadier and more independent as the years go on. And do me a favor, if you're finding this useful so far, type a 1 in the comments. If not, type a 0, so I know exactly how to make these videos better for you. So here's what's actually happening with Frank, and quite possibly with you. That wobble, that need to stare at the ground, that sense that your foot isn't quite, quote, reading the surface underneath it the way it used to, that's not your hips, and it's usually not your inner ear either. It's your toes. Specifically, it's a small group of muscles underneath the arch of your foot, muscles like the flexor digitorum brevis and the flexor hallucis brevis, tucked right under the ball of your foot and your big toe. These muscles have 2 jobs, not 1. Job number 1 is obvious. They curl your toes and help you grip the ground. But job number 2 is the one nobody tells you about, and it's actually the more important one for balance. These same small muscles are packed with sensory nerve endings that constantly report back to your brain about exactly how your body weight is shifting over your foot, in real time, hundreds of times a minute. Think of it less like grip tape on the bottom of your shoe, and more like the foundation sensors of a building, constantly feeding information upward so the whole structure knows how to adjust before it tips. When those muscles weaken, you don't necessarily feel pain. What you feel is exactly what Frank felt. A step that used to be automatic now needs conscious thought. A surface that suddenly feels less stable, even though it hasn't actually changed at all. And this isn't rare. Research on toe strength in older adults has found that by the time most people reach their 70s, they've lost roughly 1/4 to 1/3 of the toe flexor strength they had as younger adults. Strength that's been quietly draining away for decades simply because almost nobody trains it at any age. Other studies looking specifically at people who had already experienced a fall found something striking. Their toe grip strength measured noticeably weaker than people the same age who hadn't fallen. That's not a coincidence. And here's the part that should give you hope. Unlike a lot of the things that go wrong with balance as we age, this one is a strength problem, not a damage problem. It's a circuit that's gone quiet from disuse, not one that's been cut. Which means, with the right specific input, it can be trained back, at 70, at 80, and beyond. There's another piece of this worth understanding because it changes how you'll think about every exercise coming up. Researchers who study this have found that toe flexor strength correlates with how quickly and confidently people can get up out of a chair and walk a short distance, one of the standard tests clinicians use to predict fall risk. That tells you something important. This isn't some isolated minor foot issue. Your toes are wired directly into your whole body balance system from the moment you shift your weight forward to stand through every single step you take afterward. Strengthen that link and you're not just working on your feet in isolation, you're working on the foundation the rest of your balance system depends on. That's exactly what the rest of this video is going to walk you through. Let's start with the exercise in the title, because it's the most direct way to retrain those intrinsic muscles we just talked about. This is called the tau scrunch or tau curl, and it isolates the flexor digitorum brevis and flexor hallucis brevis, the exact muscles research has linked to better balance scores in adults over 60. Here's why it matters specifically for you. Most exercise routines for older adults focus on the big muscles. thighs, glutes, calves, and skip the tiny muscles that actually sense the ground first. This one doesn't skip them. Here's how to do it. Sit in a sturdy, armless chair with your back straight and both feet flat on the floor, shoes off. Lay a full-size bath towel flat on the floor in front of you and place the toes of one bare foot on the near end of it. Without lifting your heel off the floor, curl your toes downward and inward to scrunch the towel toward you, like you're trying to gather it up using only your toes. Hold the scrunch for 2 seconds, then relax your toes flat again. Do 10 scrunches with one foot, then switch and do 10 with the other. What most people get wrong here is lifting the whole foot or rocking the ankle to help. That defeats the purpose. The cue is heel glued to the floor, toes doing all the work. If you can't feel it working in the arch of your foot within the first few scrunches, you're probably using your ankle instead of your toes. Once 10 scrunches per foot feels easy, which usually takes 2 to 3 weeks, progress by placing a small can of soup or a light dumbbell on the far end of the towel, so your toes have to pull actual weight toward you. This is exactly the movement Frank had quietly lost the ability to do well. When I tested his toe curl strength in clinic, his weaker foot could barely move the towel at all. Next is the marble pickup, and I want you to notice this one trains something the towel scrunch doesn't: precision and fine motor control in individual toes, not just the whole group curling together at once. Why this matters is that real-world balance recovery, the quick correction your foot makes when you step on an uneven patch of sidewalk, depends on individual toes making small, fast, precise adjustments, not one big grip. Here's how to do it. Sit in your chair with a small bowl on the floor to one side and 15 to 20 marbles scattered on the floor in front of your bare foot. One at a time, pick up a single marble using only your toes, lift it a few inches, and drop it into the bowl. Work through as many marbles as you can with one foot, aiming for 15, then switch feet and repeat. What people get wrong is rushing and using the whole foot to scoop or trap the marble against the floor instead of actually pinching it between the toes. The cue is slow down and feel for the moment your big toe and second toe pinch the marble before you lift it. Once 15 marbles per foot feels manageable, progress by switching to smaller objects like large buttons or dried beans, which demand even finer toe control. Third is an exercise physical therapists call the short foot exercise, or doming, and this one is different from the first two because it doesn't involve curling your toes at all. It trains the sensory, arch-lifting side of those intrinsic muscles we talked about earlier. Why this matters? Remember, these muscles have two jobs: gripping and sensing. The towel scrunch and marble pickup train the gripping side. This one trains the sensing and stabilizing side directly, teaching your arch to actively engage instead of just collapsing passively under your body weight. Here's how to do it. Sit with your bare foot flat on the floor, toes relaxed and uncurled. Without moving your toes or lifting them off the ground, try to draw the ball of your foot back toward your heel, shortening the foot and lifting the arch into a slight dome, as if you're pulling the front of your foot 2 inches closer to the back without your toes ever leaving the floor. Hold the dome for 5 seconds, then release. Do 10 repetitions per foot. What almost everyone gets wrong the first time is curling the toes to fake the dome. That's an entirely different muscle group. The cue is keep your toes flat and relaxed on the floor the whole time, only the arch lifts. This is a hard one to feel at first, so don't be discouraged if it takes several sessions to get a clean rep. Once you can do it seated with control, progress by practicing it standing, holding onto a counter for support. Fourth, we're going to balance out all that flexor work with toe raises, which strengthen the muscles on the top of your foot and shin that lift your toes. Why this matters is often skipped entirely. If you only strengthen the muscles that curl your toes down without strengthening the muscles that lift them up, you can actually increase your risk of catching your toe on a rug or a step edge while walking, because a weak toe lift means your foot doesn't clear the ground properly during your stride. Here's how to do it. Stand tall holding the back of a sturdy chair, or sit if standing balance is a challenge, with your feet hip-width apart. Press your heels firmly into the floor and lift all 10 toes as high off the ground as you comfortably can, keeping your heels planted the entire time. Hold for 3 seconds at the top, squeezing, then lower slowly. Do 10 repetitions. What people get wrong is rocking backward onto their heels or letting the whole foot tip back. The cue is to keep your heel weight steady and isolate the lift to just the toes in front of the foot. Once 10 reps feels easy while holding the chair, progress by doing the same movement standing with only fingertip support, or eventually no support at all once you're steady. Fifth, we're going to connect everything you've trained so far to an actual balance challenge, the single leg stance with active toe grip. Why this matters is that strength built in a seated position doesn't automatically transfer to standing balance. Your brain needs practice using that toe strength while your full body weight is actually on that foot, which is the real situation you're in every time you step over a threshold, get into the shower, or pull your pants on standing up. Here's how to do it. Stand behind a sturdy, heavy chair or countertop with your hands resting lightly on it for backup. Shift your weight onto one foot and lift the other foot a few inches off the floor. As you balance, actively press and grip the toes of your standing foot into the ground, almost like you're trying to grab the floor with them. Hold for 10 to 15 seconds, then switch legs. Do 3 rounds per side. What people get wrong is white-knuckling the chair with their hands, which does all the stabilizing work for them and defeats the purpose. The cue is fingertips only, just enough contact to catch yourself if needed, while your toes do the real work of holding you steady. Once 15 seconds feels controlled and calm, progress by lightening your hand contact further, hovering your fingers just above the chair without touching unless you actually need it. Sixth and last is the heel raise with an active toe press, and this one ties your new toe strength directly into the push-off motion you use every time you walk. Why this matters? Walking isn't just your legs swinging forward. The final push that propels you into your next step comes from your calf and your toe flexors working together through your big toe and second toe. If that push-off is weak or uneven, your whole walking pattern becomes less stable, which is often the hidden reason someone starts shuffling instead of striding confidently. Here's how to do it. Stand at the counter with your feet hip-width apart, hands resting lightly for support. Slowly rise up onto the balls of your feet, lifting your heels as high as comfortable, and pause for 2 seconds at the top, consciously pressing down through your big toe and second toe as you hold. Lower back down slowly over a 3-second count. Do 12 repetitions. What people get wrong is letting their ankles roll outward at the top, putting all the weight on the pinky toe side of the foot. The cue is to keep your weight centered over your big toe and second toe the entire time, as if you're pressing 2 specific spots into the floor. Once 12 controlled reps feels easy on both feet together, progress to doing the heel raise on one leg at a time. Before you try any of this, a few important notes. If you have diabetic peripheral neuropathy with numbness in your feet, a recent foot or ankle fracture or surgery, severe osteoporosis with a recent compression fracture, an inner ear condition causing vertigo, or an irregular heart rhythm that isn't well controlled, talk to your doctor or a physical therapist before attempting the standing exercises in this video, especially the single leg stance. If you've fallen in the past year and haven't been evaluated by a doctor since, please get that checked first. These exercises are meant to complement medical care, not replace it. For all of these movements, the rule is simple. Mild muscle fatigue in your foot or arch is expected and fine, but any sharp, shooting, or joint pain means stop immediately. Do these exercises barefoot or in thin, non-slip socks so you can actually feel your toes working. Regular socks or shoes will blunt the sensation you're trying to train. Always position yourself near a sturdy chair or countertop for the standing exercises, and if you're using marbles, count them back into their container when you're finished so none get left on the floor as a tripping hazard later. If balance work of any kind makes you feel lightheaded or dizzy, stop, sit down, and mention it to your doctor before continuing this routine, since that can point to something separate from foot strength that deserves its own evaluation. And if you live alone, it's worth doing the standing exercises for the first week or two when someone else is home, simply so you have backup while your body is still adapting. Here's what I want you to take away from all of this. That unsteady feeling isn't a life sentence, and it isn't just part of getting older that you have to quietly accept. It's a set of small, specific muscles under your arch and around your toes that have simply gone quiet from years of never being asked to work. And quiet muscles can be woken back up at any age. Frank started with just the towel scrunch and the marble pickups 3 times a week because that's what fit into his routine. 6 weeks in, he told me the brick path at his daughter's house didn't feel like a minefield anymore. He could walk it while actually looking at his grandkids instead of staring down at his feet the whole way. That's really what this is about. It's not about the exercises themselves. It's about being able to step off your back porch onto the grass without grabbing for the railing, walk to the mailbox on an uneven driveway without a second thought, or get down onto the floor and back up to play with your grandchildren without that flicker of fear in the back of your mind. Your toes and the ground underneath them were designed to have a conversation with each other, constantly and automatically. For a lot of us over 70, that conversation just got quiet. These exercises are how you turn the volume back up. You don't need an hour a day for this to work. Frank's entire routine took about 10 minutes, done while he watched the evening news, and the change wasn't dramatic overnight. It was the kind of change you only notice a month later, when you realize you walked across the yard, or down a hotel hallway, or through a crowded parking lot, without once thinking about your feet at all. That's the goal. Not perfect balance forever, just getting your feet back in the conversation. If today's video helped, next week I'm covering the one hip mobility drill most people over 70 are missing entirely, and how it connects to this same balance system, so keep an eye out for that. Here's to standing strong and steady, on your own 2 feet, for as many years as you've got ahead of you. If you enjoyed this video, comment 1. If not, comment 0. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.